Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Original Savage Podcast. As you can see, we're in a brand new studio. If you missed the announcement video, we announced this brand new studio. We announced that season 2 is filming right now. And to celebrate, we are dropping 3 unreleased episodes from season 1. This is the first of those unreleased episodes. It didn't get released because there were some video quality issues. For some reason, my camera filmed in a weird frame rate. Content of this is so good. Could not hold it back from you guys. I can't wait for you to see it. The episode's right here. As you can see, it's waiting to be played and be released to you guys. It's sitting there. But I told you I'd make an announcement at the beginning of every single one of these new videos. And announcement number 1 is season 2 will have a brand new format. We're not just going to be talking about performance. Of course, we're still going to touch on it. Yes, we're still going to talk about change and transformation, but we're also going to dive more into the brand of Savage and talk about what makes our guest a Savage, why they choose to live a life that's unapologetic. So we're really going to be diving deep into the guest, why they live the way they live, who they are, how they got there. And then, of course, those key pieces of change, transformation, and performance, the same things that you guys have known and loved from season 1. Just some of these episodes are going to be super long. Some are going to be chopped up into different pieces and parts that'll be easier digestible, but you'll just have to wait and see what comes of it. But yeah, huge announcement, new format for season 2. We're filming right now. I can't wait to release it. But in the meantime, we've got it sitting right here. Enjoy the episode. Me and Joe Stan, Whiskey, and you.
Warning. The following is extremely addictive content. The Original Savage Podcast may cause increased levels of success, happiness, and completely transform your life. You've been warned.
Welcome back, everybody. It is another week on the Original Savage Podcast, and it is gonna be a banger. I've been wanting to have this man on since the very first week that I kicked this show off, and we finally got time to get back together. But his whole persona transformation, so this is going to be special. You guys need to go ahead, hit that record button, hit that pause button whenever you need it, because there's going to be so much information in this one I already know. So without further ado, Joe, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name is Joe. I'm founder of Live Your Freedom Foundation. We do a lot of things under the umbrella of addiction. Anything under that umbrella: suicide prevention, mental health, homelessness. It's a wide variety of things that addiction affects. Trying to open some sober housing. We got a couple fundraisers coming up. Also, founder of Warpath Ministries. We're really excited about that. We're going to get that started soon in person. We've been going online for the last year and a half. Just building up a good little thing, man. Just kind of keep it under God, man. So,
yeah, man, that's what it's all about, and that's why I wanted to have you on and have that perspective. We've had so many different perspectives on change and transformation and taking things to the next level, and this is just a little bit of a different point of view, and that's what I'm all about is different perspectives and learning from those perspectives. We've had the athletics, we've had the business, and now bringing you in, being able to talk about, really changing your life and turning your life around and taking it to the next level. So it's just a perfect fit. So with that being said, I'll just jump into that question that everybody knows is coming. In your opinion, what is that one thing that is that real catalyst for lasting change? That one thing that somebody can lock in on and really turn their life around?
well, my faith. That was the thing that made the breakthrough happen. You're going in a little bit more detail. I'd say learning to master the art of letting go. Not trying to hold on to what I think I know or what I think is best, and just kind of handing over control to God as I understand God to be, and allowing Him to lead me through this life. That is that has made all the change in my life. It's turned it around completely. So yeah, faith.
Yeah, so as you say that, like, letting go piece, like, to me, that sounds like what we've been talking about for a couple of weeks now is as humility, right? Like, obviously, humility and faith kinda go together, right? Like, some people would say that, like, Jesus was the ultimate, like, in humility, right? And so it's about that ability to ask for help and ask for other people to be on your team almost, right? Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be, hey, you're better than me, I'm better than you, whatever. It's more, hey, listen, we complement each other in the right ways to take ourselves, to where we're trying to go. And that's so, like, for when you say that, letting go of what you think or you know, putting yourself in that position of I know everything or whatnot. It's that ego versus humility versus confidence thing that we've been talking about for a couple of weeks. So hearing you say it in that way, like, that sounds exactly like where we've been at for the last couple of weeks. And yeah, I think that can you kind of pinpoint a little more in depth, like where that like breaking point is between that confidence and ego and bringing in that humility to kind of break down those barriers.
Yeah, well, it's always been interesting to me that the first thing that we do when we are born is cry out for help, and the last thing that we do when we're grown is cry out for help. So something happened between the moment I took my first breath and today that made me feel alone in this world. That made me feel like I was disconnected from the people around me and from a creator. And it's life has a tendency of finding a way to humble somebody. When I started bottling these things up and started hiding behind the proverbial fig leaf, if you will, my life got a lot more complicated. It got very painful, but through that process of suffering and experiencing pain, I was able to be forced upon my knees. It has this way of putting a man on his knees, and I have nowhere else to turn now. Like there's no no further way down for me to go outside of getting in the grave, but to say, okay, like I can't do this by myself. I need some help here. I've gone as far as I'm willing to go in this. Like I've experienced the amount of pain that is necessary for me to start behaving in a manner of reasonableness. So life broke me to my knees, and it's cool today, man, because like I willingly get on my knees today and say, like, I don't have this. Like I can't do this by myself. God, you take the reins. You're going to put people in my life that are going to sit with me and walk with me through these moments. And it's just trusting the process. Um, it's funny, man, because like we get stuck in these moments, and it's like, man, it's never going to end. It's never going to end. But every time I get on the other side of these moments in life that are just like the worst thing that's ever happened to me, until the next worst thing that's ever happened to me, I found it. I've gone through a initiation. Like it's a process of changing me into a person that can help somebody else. And all that pain that I've gone through in my life is what has given me the purpose I have today. And it's crazy how God uses these bad things that I consider bad and just makes them good. He just makes them like to where, I've given you this gift of suffering so that you know how to help this next person who's suffering. And when I use these, these harmful experiences, this trauma, the pain, as a tool to help somebody else, it no longer is a weapon that can harm me. So, that's a big part of healing, man, is, freedom through servitude, like, being a servant of God, being a servant of my fellow man. And the healing process that comes along with that is it's amazing. It's just a beautiful thing. So
It's super interesting to me too, like that we tend to wait until our back is against the absolute wall, right? Like we tend to wait until we're put into these super difficult spots or difficult positions until like we rise, right? Like we will literally fall as far as we can fall or be pushed as far as we can be pushed before we find that breaking point of asking for help or as you put it, getting on your knees and praying. It's and I saw a thing today that was a graph and I may be able to find it and pop it in the episode, but it was like times getting hard and creativity. And obviously, as the times get harder, you get more creative to be able to solve those problems. Whether that is asking for help, whether that is going outside of yourself, or whether that's relying on the strength that you have internally, right? For some reason, we tend to wait until the pressure is all the way up before we flip that switch and find that way out or find that way to reach out.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been getting more and more into biblical text, man, and like, the pride aspect. Pride is the original sin. You got these old sayings, pride comes before the downfall. And that's true, man, because, the reason pride is considered the worst sin, the original sin, is because pride creates a perfect environment for other sin to grow and flourish. It's like, if I'm not willing to ask for help because of pride, if I'm not willing to admit my mistakes or try to make amends for my mistakes, then I'm creating an environment for me to continue down a dark path. And the humility part that comes with it, like if you're willing to let go, it's a process of letting go of pride and letting go of what this world teaches me that a man's supposed to be, rub some dirt on it, walk it off, man up, don't cry, don't ask for help. All these things that kind of create an environment for shame. And, pride's a big thing for men to overcome. It is for women too. But, it's just speaking from a male perspective. I think, men are really beat down in this world to shut up, to be a leader, to not express emotion. And until we can find a way to harness that emotion and use it in a positive manner, we're just going to continue down that road. So,
and pride as well is there's different levels of pride and there's different aspects of pride that I think that people get lost in. Like, there's a sense of pride when you are helping someone else, right? Like, you're proud of them, you're proud of your kids, and that's not hurtful, not necessarily. And obviously, anybody can take anything too far, right?
right.
And that's where gluttony and things like that come in, where you take everything too far. A little bit of anything's not bad, a lot of something's bad. And that's where I think that line between confidence and ego come in, because like when your pride is mainly in yourself and your accomplishments, then that's where, and when pride starts to drive your decision making, I think that's the aspect that's the slippery slope. That's the dangerous aspect, is when it's driving your decision making.
Right. This is, I'm gonna draw a parallel here. It's one thing to be proud of someone else. That is, there's nothing wrong with that. But that self pride is what becomes vanity. And when we look, I'm gonna compare it to love. Like when I'm loving myself, or when I'm expecting someone else to love me, that pretty much is me saying, I want you to make me feel the way I want you to make me feel. And by definition, that's not love. Like, the only love that's real, the only love that exists is the love I give away. Like, it never talks about in the Bible being loved. In any of these theologies that people go into, like the idea is not self-gratification. The idea is helping fellow man. It's what I give away. What I give to a receiver is way more important than what I get as a receiver. Pride is a good thing, just like love is a good thing when I'm giving it away. But when I internalize it and start giving it to myself and building myself up, that's where it can get really messy. I start putting myself above my kids, my family, my relationship partner, God, all these things that are so self-focused, and I start to lose what it means to live. Like I'm driven by work, I'm driven by money, all these things that are not eternal. There's nothing that this world is going to provide me that I can take with me. The things that I truly own in this world are the things I give away. My, love, joy, happiness, compassion. Those things are what lives forever. Those are the true gifts and the things that really belong to me. My car, this shirt, the house, all that stuff can be taken from me. It's never been mine. Somebody can rob me of my money. The bank can foreclose on my house. Like that stuff doesn't belong to me. It's just something I have for a short period of time. The things that belong to me are the things that I give away. And, it's the same with the pride aspect, man. I can't look at myself as being more important than I am. I'm somewhere between an anthill and a mountain, somewhere between an angel and an insect. And, I like it that way. I like not being a big deal. I like just being another person on the bus, just somebody that can sit with somebody else through a moment, a human moment that they're going through. And, the gifts of that are infinitely rewarding. So.
And I think that's what most people struggle with, right? Is the rise through success and trying to keep humility in that success, right? Because other people may be telling you you're a big deal, right? And especially in this day and age with views and social media and followers and this, that, and the other. And it's like, oh, well, this person's a big deal because they have so-and-so number of followers, or this person's a big deal because they started XYZ company and they have, all of this money or whatever. And I think that in today's society, that's the biggest struggle for people is to stay humble and stay out of that I'm a big deal phase during that rise, during that success. And, because even as a powerful CEO, even as somebody that has a lot of followers, there's ways to give that back. There's ways to empower other people like you're talking about and really bring other people up and put your pride into other people. There's ways of doing that. But I think that that's a minefield almost for most people on their way to success.
Right. I mean, we could take a look, throughout the course of history, man. We got a ton of successful people that end their lives. Like I've seen people that are CEOs, they're business owners, they got employees, they got overflowing bank accounts, but they still have the anxiety. They're still one bad day away from swallowing a bottle of pills. And it's because, like, we got these things that happen. And a lot of us, we pretend like we use them as motivating factors. My dad said I wasn't good enough, so I gotta, prove him wrong. And it's cool on paper. It looks good when you get followers. All this stuff looks good, but I am a follower. Like I'm not. I'm a type of person that I never liked to get a lot of attention. I didn't like to stand out in crowds.
That's hard for you. You're kind of large.
Yeah. I'm 6'5", 290 pounds. So, people look at my direction a lot, man. And, it just makes me feel awkward. I don't like it. But, the deal here is, when I start looking at this trauma, and I'm using it as a motivating factor, I'm basically putting a wall around it. Like my adversary is using it to build a stronghold in my heart. And what a stronghold is it's a fortress with an entrance that is almost impossible to access. So, I've got this thing that I never talk about, this thing that hurts too much. And I'm going to tuck it away right here and build this wall around it. And, like just a biblical reference on that would be, King David. When we look at his story, he's one of the wealthiest men in the Bible. He's the king of Israel, the most powerful man, all this stuff. But he's also one of the most traumatized people in the Bible. Not because of what's happened to him in his adult life, but what happened to him as a child. The prophet was coming out to anoint the new king, and he goes to David's father, and David's father lines up all of his brothers. And, they're filling them out. Who's got the broadest shoulders, who's the tallest, who's the most imposing. And David's watching all this happen from the field with the sheep. And, his thought process is, man, I'm not good enough. My father didn't pick me. He doesn't want me. But David was chosen. He was a man after God's own heart. And, we see this play out in his trauma, man. He sends Uriah off to war to die because he wants to sleep with his wife. He sees this woman and he thinks that he wants what he thinks wants him. And this is going to fill this hole. So he sends this man off to die so he can sleep with his wife. And, it's not good. And, we see it in his relationship with Saul. Saul was a man that David admired. And Saul was constantly trying to kill David. But David wouldn't kill him, one, because he was anointed by God or, to be the king at the time. But two, because Saul accepted him sometimes. And I know a lot of people can relate to this because, a lot of people that might be watching this have found themselves in relationships that are abusive. And you won't walk away from that relationship because sometimes they love me, sometimes they accept me. So we stick around through all the bad stuff, all the beatings, all the FUs, all the, emotional, mental, and physical suffering of it because of those rare, scarce moments where they actually love me. And, that is a byproduct of early onset trauma that it's difficult to navigate through. You start to believe the lie. This world has taught me that I'm not good enough, that, I'm not enough, period. And I start to believe that and buy into it. And then it starts to shape these relationships in my life where there's a snowball effect occurring where, there's more stuff happening. There's more trauma happening. There's, all these things that I'm going through that reaffirm the belief that I'm not enough. And, it's a matter of finding a new source. I have a creator that made me the way I was supposed to be. And the more that I try to be something else, the more trauma I'm going to experience. There's no more difficult and stressful lie to continue than to try to be something that I'm not. I was created a very specific way for a very specific reason. And the more I try to be something other than what I am, instead of accepting that, I'm here. These are the tools I have. These are the gifts I have. And using those, the more I buy into the lie, the more I get away from who I am and the more I get away from God. And it's odd because the closer I get to him, the closer I get to me. And, life is a lot less stressful when I don't have to pretend.
Well, and that goes back to the same, again, another pillar that we talk about all the time is that internal audit or that internal perspective and looking at yourself and understanding who you are to your core. Like, who am I really? Like, what are my priorities? What makes me me? What can only I do? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What am I hiding from? What am I running from? Right? Understanding yourself. It's not to expose yourself. Like, you can do it in the mirror. You can do it laying in the bed. Like, you don't have to go out and tell the world. But when you live with that understanding, you can live in a whole new world. It's a whole, like you say, you're not hiding from yourself anymore. It's less stressful because you're not hiding from yourself. You're not hiding from your problems because you know what your problems are. You can acknowledge your problems, even if it's just to yourself. You acknowledge what those problems are, and you can understand, like, hey, I'm doing this because of this, right? Like, you use the example of war, and you use the example of a stronghold. Like, you wouldn't go into war not knowing where your enemies are, right? Like, I would never go into war not knowing that there's a base here, a base there, and a base there, right? I need to know where those things are at, or I'm going to walk into a trap and I'm going to get murdered, right? It's
Right.
it's the same thing. If you don't understand what is inside of you, what those strongholds in your opinion are, or in your example, if you don't know what those strongholds are that you have walls up around, eventually you're going to step on a landmine because
Yeah.
you're trying to tiptoe around these things that you don't want to address or you don't want to bring up or whatever. And at some point, at some time, it's going to happen. And if you don't control it, if you don't control when that happens, it's going to happen at the worst time.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. I think war is probably the best analogy for this. It is a spiritual warfare that's occurring. The problem here is I do know my enemy, but my enemy also knows me. It knows all my strengths. It knows all my weaknesses. It knows what I'm thinking. It knows what I'm feeling. Because my only enemy in life is the man in the mirror. It's that's a hard adversary to overcome. Is like he knows all my moves. Like he knows my game plan. He knows my strategy. So this is where the recruitment of help is really beneficial here, because like I've shown myself over and over again in my life that what I think is best is normally not. I know how to fuck my life up. And, if I'm going to do something different, I have to do something different. I've got to pray, man. I've got to listen. I've got to be still in moments of chaos, because what God has shown me and what the people he's put in my life have shown me is that I can be okay even when life is not. I don't have to have my hands in everything. I don't have to fix everything right now. I can just sit here in a moment and just be a person. And if I need help, you ask for it. It's odd that I started receiving all the help I needed the same moment that I decided to ask for it. And, not try to put my hands in that too, like I don't want that help. I want my help to look this way. I don't want to go to rehab. I want you to give me $20 so that, I can get through this momentary dope sickness that I'm going through. That's the help I want, but the help I need is a ride to go get some actual healing. To get up on a Sunday morning and sit down in the church pew and, to make a phone call when the phone weighs a million pounds and I don't want to call my friend or don't want to call my pastor, or, don't want to hit my knees or don't want to go to this AA, NA, whatever meeting. In those moments when I don't want to do these things the most are the moments that I need to do these things the most. Human beings were not created to isolate and be alone. I think it's pretty interesting, man. It's like, when you get arrested, what they do is isolate you from your friends and family. They put you in this cell. They don't completely isolate you, but they take you away from everything you know. And then if you get, there's another offense inside of jail, they put you further into isolation where you've got no access to anybody, locked down for 23 hours. You get an hour of rec period basically by yourself. You're not in general pop. So the worst form of punishment that our government could come up with is isolating a human being. But I do that to myself. I'm getting in the mind prison that I like to dwell in, and then I'll go sit down in a dark room and just sit there by myself. Like I do that to myself. Like, why am I punishing myself in the worst way that the United States government can think of to punish me? Like God created man so that he would have a companion. It is insane for a human being to believe that he doesn't need a companion. Like there are people here. Like there are people that have been through what you've been through. I promise you, if it's got a name, somebody's done it before. You're not the only one. And until we change that mindset to say, everybody's going through some shit right now. I'm not the only one that's been through this. I could go outside and and throw a bowling ball in a parking lot somewhere and hit somebody that understands. And, I'm sitting over here acting like I'm the only one, and that is just so abusive towards yourself. And you're going to stay stuck in that place until you change that mindset and understand that there's nothing that you go through in life that somebody else hasn't been through. Whether or not it looks the exact same, like they know the feeling that you're feeling right now. They know loneliness. They know what it feels like to be brokenhearted. They know what it feels like to not to think you don't have anybody to go to, and they know what shame feels like. Every man, woman, and child on this earth knows what shame feels like. And until I can change that mindset to say, okay, somebody's going to get me. I'm not alone in this life, and stop punishing myself in isolation, then I'm just going to stay stuck in a place of victimhood. And, victimhood is, it's a bad hood. It's a bad hood to live in. It's the worst neighborhood there is.
It's a bad hood, that's for sure. But, and I think that's why, I mean, this is completely different, like left turn, but I think that's why like music is so powerful to a lot of people is because it makes them realize that they're not the only one, right? Like people talking in music, or you literally just said, like, my biggest enemy is the man in the mirror. There's a song by Muscadine Bloodline called My Only Enemy Is Me. Or it's called Enemy, but the chorus is My Only Enemy is my biggest enemy is me. And then you've got like Chris Stapleton's Whiskey and You. In it, he says that he has to break down and drink to go ahead and address his problems, or it'll hit out of the blue, right? That's what we just said. If you don't know the internal struggle, like if you don't address what you have internally, it'll hit out of the blue. And we're walking through this minefield, just oblivious, like trying to be oblivious to our problems. And that's what he says in the song. But then again, and then you've got somebody like Jelly Roll who's blown up because he's honest about his problems. He's honest about his past. And his fan base has all come out and been like, listen, somebody finally gets it. We've all got these problems, right? And it's this fan base that has erupted because it's like, oh my God, somebody is like us. Somebody is talking about the things that we go through. Somebody's got the struggles that we've got, right? And that's why people gravitate to music for healing. And like you said, the worst form of punishment is locking yourself in a room in this sorrow, in this thought process of this never ending like cycle of just thinking. Like at least turn music on to break it up, right? Like do something other than sitting in silence.
Right. And your Whiskey and You is, man, that song cuts deep, man. There's a line in the second verse of that song, and I just think it sums up, alcoholism, drug addiction so well. Because, I think these things in terms of a disease are mislabeled. We call it alcoholism or drug addiction. We're naming it after what we have used as a solution for it instead of naming it after a problem. Like if you call brokenheartedness and loneliness a disease, I get that, man. But like, substance use, I have a hard time pinning that down as an illness. But the line in the song, he says, I got a problem, but it ain't like what you think. I drink because I'm lonesome, and I'm lonesome because I drink. That describes that vicious cycle of addiction so well. It's like I'm drinking to get out of this problem, but I get more of this problem because I'm drinking. Like, so the thing that I'm using to escape my shame is now bringing shame back to me tenfold. So I need more of it because it's the only thing I know. It's the only thing that I've relied on for so long. And now, like, I don't know where else to turn. And we just get further and further away until that point where, we hit the wall. And hopefully, if somebody's watching that's going through that, I hope you hit your wall. Like, I hope you fall before it's too late, because everybody's going to get a sobriety date. I just hope yours is not etched on a stone granite. That there is a better life out there, but it's coming. You're either going to die from this, or you're going to feel enough pain to do something different. And people always, they always laugh at me because I love sad songs. Like I love sad songs, man. And they're like, listen to something happy. I don't relate to that. Like it's somebody that shouts out their pain that I can relate to. Cause in my lifetime, that's what it's looked like. It's been very painful. It's been rough. And when I hear somebody express my feelings in a song, it's like, okay, like I am not the only one here. Like somebody else understands this, and they're able to put it together in a way that's so poetic and so beautiful that, it grabs people. Like there's a definite gravitation towards these artists that throw their pain out there. Like Zach Bryan, he might have one happy song, but like he talks about pain. He talks about real life stuff. I've been through a lot of situations that you might hear about in these gangster rap songs, but I don't relate to that stuff. Like I don't care about, balling. I don't care about rims. I don't care about shooting guns or slinging crack or, big booty hoes and all this other stuff. I don't relate to that stuff. Like what I relate to is somebody who is walking through a moment in life and can express that moment and show a solution to it. Like somebody that can walk through these things. Like I admire that. That's where heroes are. Going back to the war thing, there's a lot of battles fought on foreign shores, but some are fought behind closed doors. And those wars are the ones I'm interested in hearing about. I've fought those wars. I still fight those wars. And every time I get through it, man, it's like, man, everything makes sense now. Like I understand why I cried the tears I cried. I understand why I felt the way I felt. Like I understand why that happened to me yesterday, because today it gives me a reason. And, and that's the thing, man. Like, a lot of people that, may be hearing this tonight. This world's a better place with you in it. You're here for a reason, man. Like that. I know life sucks sometimes. It's going to be that way no matter what, but don't quit right now. Like you're in this moment right now for a reason. Just keep walking, keep having faith, and take the next step, and it'll all make sense one day.
Yeah, and I mean, everything you said in that moment is it's so powerful and it's so true. And going back to that line in the Whiskey and You about and the cycle you talk about, and it not, in your opinion, it's not necessarily the addiction that's the issue. Obviously, it's what they're dealing with internally, and that goes back to what we said earlier. It's about understanding the internal aspect of things before it gets to that level where you've put so much crap on top of it that you can't even identify it anymore. Right? Like
Right.
the more you bury it, the more you put crap on top of it, the more that you wait, the longer you wait, the harder it's going to get to do that. So like, again, it's a cycle, right? We all hate to like look internally and be like, oh, I have this problem, or oh, I have this problem, or but the more you put on top of it, the more you bury it, the more work you're going to have to do to get it out, to unbury it, for lack of a better word, right? The further you put it down in there, the more work you're going to have to do to get it back out. So you might as well deal with it now, or you're going to have to deal with it somehow down the road at some point, but you're going to have to do a lot more work then, because you're going to have to you're going to say, oh, well, this is the problem. No, it's not. This is the problem. No, it's not. This is the problem. No, it's not. This is the problem. That's why they say money can't buy happiness. That's why they say all these, things about, somebody else can't make you happy, or whatever, all these relationship things and all these things. It's because internally, if you're struggling internally and you're just burying things, nothing's ever going to fix it, because you're the one doing it. You're the one. It doesn't matter how you spin it to yourself, to your friends, to whoever it might be. Right. And I made a post about this today. It was 2 days ago, but it'll be a couple of weeks when this podcast episode comes out. But I said that I almost every day I tell my son, find solutions, not excuses. And I tell him that almost every day because, and the post that I posted, it said that life's going to have a ton of fog. Teach them to navigate it, not hide from it. Right. And that's what happens is we look for these excuses of why we're not happy instead of doing the work and saying, hey, it's me. I've got this issue or I've got this issue or whatever. Instead of doing the work and looking internally, we find an excuse. It's because I don't have enough money. It's because this person's, making me mad or this job, it's, not right for me or whatever it might be. We make all these other excuses as to why we're not in the place we want to be. Excuses are killing your success.
100%. 100%, man. Rationalization and justification is just me manipulating myself into thinking that I'm smarter than you. I know everything and it's all your fault. And I can't do anything to change the situation I'm stuck in. And I don't want to manipulate anybody else, but I don't want to manipulate myself, because the more I do that, the more I buy into the bullshit I feed myself. It's digging that hole deeper and deeper. And, it's, it just makes it harder in the long run to get out of things and to break the chains and find freedom. And, that's the promise that Christ has given me in my relationship with him is, I can lay this stuff down at the cross. God's forgiven me. Why can't I? Why can't I forgive myself? Like, if God is who he says he is and he says I'm forgiven, why am I going to argue with him? God ain't never lost an argument. Like, who am I? Like, I can move on from this stuff. I can use it as a tool and a resource going forward, not in a vain or prideful way, but in a loving and compassionate way, because there's somebody else. You look at Paul. Paul was, one of the apostles. He was named Saul originally, and his job as a Pharisee was to convict and murder followers of Christ. And the Lord saw this and said, this is the guy I'm going to use. So and this whole aspect of Paul's journey, man, like, if God can use somebody like Paul to basically write, 2/3 of the New Testament, to carry the message to Gentiles, to people that are not of Jewish background, and basically turn the whole world around and give them access to the cross, why can't he use somebody like me? Like, the stuff I've been through, the mistakes I've made, the harm I've done, the crap I've caused in my life, and everybody that tried to love me. Why can't he take that and say, okay, y'all remember Joe, but look at him now. Look what I've done with him. Look at this message he can carry now. Like, I've got a use for this person. Like, he's got a use for everybody if you're willing to be used. And, this is, one of the reasons, like, you look in 12-step programs, really into these recovery-based programs, a lot of the faiths out there, the central idea focuses around helping someone else. And, like, no matter how far you've gone down the scale, if you woke up this morning, you got something. Like, there's a reason why you're up this morning. Let it be the day that you find out why. Like, let you find your purpose this moment, this day, and go out there and do something with it. It's not helping anybody for you not to take action when you find purpose. And I think, a lot of people kind of scramble up, what's my purpose? I personally, I feel like every person with a beating heart has the same purpose. And it's, how can I make life better for somebody else? How can I make this world a better place? How can I lead somebody to the kingdom? When I started focusing on that as my purpose on a daily basis, man, the sustainable joy that I received in my life, it was Yeah, it's indescribable. When I sought joy from a job title or from making that next sale or doing that next shot or, getting this next woman, those moments of joy only left me more empty than I was before I conquered it. But the joy I received from being a humble servant to someone else, like that stuff lasts. Like it is sustainable. It keeps me motivated. And, it's honestly, it puts a smile on my face, man. And it's odd, man. I tell this story to a lot of people, man. I didn't have a lot of birthday celebrations, growing up and through any point in my life. But, I was in rehab and, my birthday came up while I was there and, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, everybody in the treatment center comes running in my bedroom. They're throwing like cut up newspapers and magazines as confetti. The guy that was the tech there, he like made a special breakfast and all this stuff. And I was just so overwhelmed with joy and emotion, like a positive emotion. And I remember this is the first time I realized I was doing this, but I knew that I'd done it all the time. Like every time I experienced joy, but I was forcing myself not to smile. I was forcing myself not to express happiness. And I was like, why am I doing this? Like I'm happy right now. These people are trying their best to love me and I'm over here trying to stonewall it. Like why is it so against my nature to receive love? And that's one of the things, man. In the program, it talks about, you get to this point where you're unwilling to, or you can't imagine a life with or without drugs and alcohol. And I would struggle with that line. And one day, I went and sat with this older woman after a meeting, and I was like, what does that mean? Like, I can't imagine a life with or without drugs and alcohol. And she looks at me and she said, it means that you've lost the ability to give and to receive love. And like it all made sense right then. Like I had lost the ability to give and to receive love. And unless I can receive it, I can't give it. Unless I can't give it, I can't receive it. And, that started opening some doors for me, man. It's like, I can smile at people today. I can hug people without feeling awkward. I can look people in the face when I talk to them. I can look at myself in the mirror. I don't stare at my shoes all day anymore. And, that shame starts to chip away and the resentment start to go away. And it's like, okay, if Christ is on the cross and he's going through the worst suffering imaginable, and the thing that he does is pray for the people that are killing him. Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Like, why am I having such a hard time letting go of this resentment? Like, I've never been through a crucifixion. Like, why am I having this hard time forgiving myself for mistakes? Like, I was made flawed. I was born into a fallen world. Like, why am I so hard on myself and so hard on other people when it's not that big of a deal, man? Like, making amends, change, be better. Like these things aren't difficult, man, but I got to let go. Like I've got to let it be. And, like just these little lessons, man, that people have gifted me throughout the course of my life, man. It's just a word, just a sentence, just a smile, just a hug is, that some days that makes all the difference in the world. So.
I think that just that story of your birthday, right? I think that's like the perfect analogy, or like the perfect imagery of what I talk about all the time with internal perspective matching external perspective of how other people see you, right? You see yourself as you need to suppress joy and happiness, and you see yourself as in that moment, you see yourself as having to act tough or look tough or whatever it might be, right? Don't smile, don't. And I mean, to me, that's kind of what it is, being a bigger guy, being, 6'5". You got to look tough. Don't smile. You got to look tough, right? And that's what you come to like see yourself as, right? You come to see yourself as this tough guy. You can't be happy. You can't. but these other people see you as somebody that needs that happiness, needs that joy. They see you as somebody that needs to smile and needs to, kind of let go. And that's where there was a disconnect in the moment because, you know, they weren't aligned. There was no alignment there. You see yourself one way, they see you another way, and there's no alignment there. And that's what I talk about all the time when it comes to success and performance and change and taking things to the next level is the alignment of that internal perspective and the external perspective of how people see you and how you see yourself and how different that moment could have been. Now, it was great because it made you internalize and see yourself in that, hey, why am I doing this? Like, why am I doing this? But how great that could have been if you would have let yourself, feel the joy, feel the love, feel the happiness, right? And that's why it's so important, again, to go back to what we kind of talked about in the beginning and let go, right? Like you said, let go of that stuff internally, but you have to find it and address it first before you can't let go if you ignore it. If you don't say, oh, hey, it's there, right? Then you can't let it go.
Yeah, and you can't catch a blessing with your hands full. If I'm holding on to all this crap, man, like how am I going to receive something good? Like where am I going to find the change at? Like, I'm dwelling in the past, and that's the thing, about staying in the moment. Like the past is where regret, remorse, shame come from. The future is where fear, worry, and doubt come from. Like in this moment is where life's happening. That's where God is. That's where I am. So like I'm missing out on life every time I start living in these places that aren't real anymore. The past is already gone. It's a vapor, and the future is a figment of my imagination. It's like right here in this moment is where it is. Like this is it right here. I have this moment and nothing else. And that is what I have to hold on to. It's the more I try to have one hand in the past and one hand in the future, it's like, it's kind of like, in the medieval times when you get bound and quartered, and they pull you apart with horses.
I was thinking Stretch Armstrong.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't want to be torn apart in the moment, man. So yeah, I want to live this moment. I appreciate this moment and the gift of it. I think a lot of people miss out on the greatest parts of life because they exist in the unknown. I remember, going through the process of the 12 steps, if you know what I'm talking about, that step 4 and step 5, I'm writing down all these resentments I have, more so about myself than anyone else. Cause, I had a disdain towards myself way more than any other person. And, now I got to go in and talk to this person about everything I've been through, about the resentments I have, about the mistakes I've made. And, it was a big thing because I went into that like I'm not going to talk about this. I'm taking this to the grave. Nobody's going to get this out of me. And this man sits down with me, and he basically told me some things about himself that would have been on that list if I'm not going to share this with anybody. And like I saw somebody trust me, and that helped me trust them. And I went out of there and told him about things that I didn't even write on that piece of paper. And I remember, I was getting in my truck on the way home, and I turned the radio off. I rolled the windows down, and it was like the first time I really felt the wind blowing against my face and the sunshine on my skin. And I was like, man, I've been missing this. Like, the sunset. Most fishermen go their whole lives and never realize that it's not the fish they're after. It's that moment, like sitting on that lake, the sun reflecting, the moonlight dancing on a flowing river. Those are the things. It's God's beauty, the things God has done with his paintbrush that I had been neglecting for so long, and that have added so much beauty to my life. And I wish I could have learned this so much earlier. Like I wish I would have fallen flat on my face, as an early 20-year-old. It took me till 37 years of age to really hit that rock bottom that people talk about, and make the changes that are necessary to see life, to live it. And I wish I would have experienced the pain that is required to do that at a lot younger in life, but I didn't get there. So there's a reason for it, and here I am. Like I'm in the moment. So
Yeah, the being in the moment, it's funny that you bring up the fisherman reference, because one, I claim to be a pretty avid outdoorsman, and I've said this to people a lot. I feel closest to God when I'm in the woods, because that's the creation, right? That's it. But it's not just that; it's also like you're present, right? You're listening to the birds, you're listening to every sound. Like I would more say it's when I'm in the tree stand with my kids, and you hear every sound. You're not really thinking. You're thinking about what was that sound more than you're thinking about the past or the future, or any of that stuff. But that's where that just clarity, right? It's just that clear mind of again, like church on strong, not being pulled in different directions. And it's funny, like the last episode we talked about how the more you explore and the more you use parts of your brain, the more parts of your brain you unlock. But no matter how much you unlock your brain, no matter how much of your brain you start to unlock and be able to use, if you're using a piece of it to think about the past and a piece of it to think about the future, you're still not going to be able to operate at 100% right now in the moment. And if you're not operating at 100% in the moment, then you're not at a peak performance level. You're not at your best, because again, even if it's 1 or 2% in the past or 1 or 2% in the future, if you've always got stuff blocking you, then obviously, right? That's how percentages work. If 2%'s over here, you're not 100% right now, right? So if you want to be at your highest and best level, you have to just be 100% in the now.
right, and it's not just you're hurting. Like when you get caught up in the idea of the past, the idea of the future, like you're not being the best father you can be. You're not being the best husband you can be. You're not being the best friend or the best person you can be, because you're not present. Like you're not there. You're basically on autopilot when you're existing in those two places. And the idea is, to build a legacy. Like I've been to a lot of funerals, dealing with addiction and the way things go with that. Like, a lot of people don't make it. And, I've never been to a funeral where the pastor talks about, this guy threw the best parties, man. He always had the hottest women. He had so much money. Like, that's not what is expressed at funerals. It's when I was at my lowest point, this guy showed up. Like, this guy was there for me. He was a good man. He took care of his children. He was a good husband. He showed up every time I needed him. And, and I think that's the legacy that I'd like to leave behind here is, when I didn't have anyone else, like Joe showed up for me. And he was present in a moment while I was going through something. Those things, they echo through eternity. It's like, somebody showed up for me when I was in that situation, and it made all the difference in the world. And, because of that, I show up for somebody else when they're in that situation. And hopefully because of that, they show up for somebody else. And it's this idea of paying it forward. Like, you're not doing it with the idea of get me something in return. It's the idea of take what I'm giving you right now and give it to someone else. And let this be the catalyst to change that echoes throughout the world and throughout the course of time.
Yeah, and I think that that's a piece too, like that gets it gets overused in the world today is like the put it out there and it'll come back to you tenfold. Like, right? People say that, and it's like that's not how it's supposed to be. You don't expect something to come back to you tenfold. You're putting it out there. You're putting greatness out there. You're putting whatever it is out there to better other people, not expecting things to come back. It's not about it coming back tenfold.
Right. You want it to be a ripple effect. You want to throw a stone into an ocean and let it turn into a wave, and you want it to spread outwardly. That goes back to the pride and vanity of like, yeah, I'm doing this because it's going to pay off for me in the end. And it's, that stuff always sets me up for disappointment.
Yeah. And like I said, that's what, all these people are out here, talking about. Just put it out there and it'll come back to you, treat people great because they'll pay you back at some point, like with something. And it's like, that's not what it's supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be about you're trying to set them up so that it sets you up. Like that is still you doing stuff for your own purpose, for your own betterment. It is not about making that person better. And I understand why it comes. Like, yes, people are saying that because it's true is like, I had somebody recently ask me why I got out of being a day-to-day financial advisor where I was actually, taking care of clients. And I said that I got so much more purpose out of helping others building their business. Could I have built a giant business? Yes, absolutely. I train people to do the exact same thing. Like I teach people how to build a huge business. And my focus is on growth and sales and making their businesses better. Like, could I have done that for myself? Yes, 100%. Obviously, I know the strategies. I'm teaching the strategies. I know them well enough to be able to give them to other people. I've created strategies. I've done all these things. I could have 100% done that. But that's not the best use of my time because I knew that the back end, behind the scenes stuff was not where I succeeded the most. Where I succeeded the most is giving other people power, giving other people information, giving other people, this motivation to be better. And it was like that with my clients, right? Like I was more worried about teaching them the flaws in the system or teaching them about whatever it was that they had questions about than I was worried about closing them or worried about, hey, make sure you come to me. Yes, it closes clients because they trust you and they understand that you're there for the best. But I was more worried about giving them the information and the power through the knowledge than I was. And that's where my purpose is. That's where my gift is being able to give people that power of knowledge and inspiration and motivation and have them, see them smile for the first time, see them, a light bulb turn on for the first time, or when somebody says, "Oh my God, that makes so much sense." It's so simple, and I've just been overlooking it. Why didn't I think of that? Right? Those light bulb moments. That's all I need is to see somebody get it, and that's so much more important to me than closing one client for myself for my business.
Yeah, I think, a lot of people, that I've met, specifically in terms of recovery, man, like every treatment. So I've been to 11 different treatment centers in my life. And, while I'm there, it's like somebody wants to corner the market on recovery. They, everybody there is like, oh, I'm going to be an addictions counselor. I'm going to, do all these things. And, what I would tell people is stop trying to change the world and focus on changing one life. And by doing that, you've already changed the world. Like you've changed the world for that person. And just by helping somebody, like one person changing can have an immense effect Like,
Right.
it goes down through generations. Like, when you change an addicted mother or father, like they're not passing addiction on to their kids. They're passing recovery on to their kids, and then their kids do something, more productive with their life. They don't fall into the gang violence. They don't, grow up in depression and isolation and end up killing themselves. They become productive citizens, loving fathers, loving mothers, and the change that occurs from being that person for one other person. It really does go on forever. There's no limit to the amount of good it's going to do just being there for one person. So, we like to, as humans, I think, we like to overcomplicate, what we're supposed to do. But, you'll find yourself in situations where there's a person in front of you and they need you to be there, and you show up and you walk away. And sometimes it's like, man, I don't know if I did enough. I don't know if I did anything, but there's a seed planted, and, just a little bit of water and a little bit of sunshine. That seed grows up and blossoms, and then that whole process continues. Like their kids are affected, their families are affected, their friends are affected, then their kids are affected, their families are affected, and there's just no end to the potential of change that one moment or one human being can do,
Right. And that's where it comes back tenfold comes. It's not to you. It's down the line. Like, it doesn't come back directly to you. It comes back to the universe, to the world, because you changed one life, and that life changed 10 lives or 20 lives or whatever eventually. That's where that saying came from. Not for you to use it personally of you did something, so something's going to come back to you. That's not it's not a boomerang. Like you said, it's a ripple effect going across the lake. It's not a boomerang where you throw it out and a huge boomerang goes back to you, right? Uh, like that's definitely not what it is. It's one of these things where, and again, if you're working to change people's lives for for your own pride or ego or to get something back, then that's not, that's not the purpose of it. And I think that is, again, where you have to look internally, right? You have to let go. You have to have faith in the aspect of what's going to happen is going to happen, and you're able to reach out and get out of it when your back's against the wall, right? Again, we kind of go full circle there, and when your back's against the wall, something will happen to make a change in your life.
Yeah, 100%, man. Yes, it's all about showing up, and staying in that moment. I could talk about this for days, man, but it's really simple. It's very simple, and I think just the way that human beings are wired is it just tends to complicate the simplest things in life, and I can't afford to do that anymore. I like a simple life. I like, coming home and spending time with the people I love. I like, scratching my dog. He's over there crying at the door right now. I like just a simple, slow, peaceful life. And it took me a long time to kind of differentiate between peace and boredom, because my life had been so chaotic. That misery kind of felt like home. And, once I stepped foot out of it and I'm sitting here and, I don't have all this chaos going on around me. I can just sit on the couch with the person I love and watch a movie, or sit out on the back porch and listen to some sad country songs. Just that kind of stuff. It's like, man, this is really nice. I've missed this, and I didn't even know I was missing it. So, it definitely, simple life is what I like. So,
Yeah, no, I mean, that's exactly why, again, that's another one of the pillars that we talk about all the time, and the pillars that, I kind of say is missing in trainings and coaching of today is simplicity. Because again, we all like to overcomplicate things. But again, the reason for it, like you just said, and again, we're going to bring it back full circle. And this is the perfect way to end the podcast, is because a lot of us want that busyness or that chaos so we can hide from ourselves, right? So we can hide from the internal conversation. We don't like quiet because that means we have to think and we have to internalize and we have to deal with the things that are going on inside. And that's why a lot of people that haven't dealt with it don't like to be at home and sit still and have the boring, like you said, aspect of things. It's because they don't want to deal with it. So again, full circle moment there. But man, thank you so much for coming on and spending time with us today. One more time, just kind of tell everybody where they can find you, website, social media, all that good stuff.
All right, so yeah, you can find Live Your Freedom Foundation at www.liveyourfreedom.org. Again, we got some fundraisers coming up. June 28th, I believe, in New Jersey. We got a golf outing up there. July 12th, I think. They'll be posted on the website, but September 12th. In Clayton, North Carolina, we got another golf outing. It should be a lot of fun. We got Aaron Hammond, the Big River Band, coming up to play some music, trying to generate some money for putting up some sober housing, some sanctuaries for people trying to get out of domestic violence, or even homeless shelters for the homeless. Got a lot of things going on. You can find us at Takeover on Facebook. We're in the process of rebranding that. I'm going to change the Project Takeover page to Live Your Freedom. Project Takeover is something we've been doing under Live Your Freedom to do that. But you can find us on, we got a Zoom schedule. You can find me at Joe Stan on Facebook. I do have a couple fake accounts out there, and that if anybody gets in y'all's inbox and it's my picture and they're asking to do tarot card readings and all that stuff, it is not me. I'm not going to ask you for money. I'm not just going to pop up in your inbox and start saying a bunch of weird stuff. You can find me on TikTok at Soul Therapist. Put a Z where the S is in therapist. There's probably over 100 fake accounts on that, but mine is the one with the most, I guess, the most followers on it. But yeah, liveyourfreedom.org. And you can find us on the socials, on YouTube. But yeah, just check it out, man. We're trying to, hopefully we'll do something good, and we got the ministry starting in person pretty soon. And, we do have a Zoom ministry that goes on 4 nights a week, and you can find that schedule on any of those websites. And, just send us a message and we'll send you one. All right. Also, September 28th in Sarver, Pennsylvania, an American Revival at the Kelly Farms. It's going to be a huge event. It's a revival. We're going to have Olivia Lane there. She does a song on the soundtrack from the Chosen series. She sings a song called Woman at the Well. Sidewalk Prophets will be there. The band Steel, Risen to Save, Cindy Goldman from Cornerstone TV will be hosting the event. It's done under an American Revival at Kelly Farms. You can find that on Google. It's a free event. If you guys can get out there September 28th, they've asked me to come up there and talk a little bit, and we'd love to see you, man. It's really going to be an amazing event. So I just wanted to put that out there too.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to tag all those and put a schedule out, or I'll put a schedule on the screen maybe, do this. So yeah, absolutely. And again, man, it's just been a pleasure having you on. I love the stories. I love, just the depth of knowledge and the depth of understanding on how really to make an impact and the right way to make an impact. Because there's too many fake people out there who want to make an impact for the wrong reason. So listeners, we'll be back next week with another absolute banger. This one was so impactful. I know you probably need like 3 weeks to digest it all, but we'll see you next week. Let's go.